One of my favorite things to do is to pet other people's cats when my hands are covered in coconut oil. It just gets a rise out of everybody. So here's 5 different ways that you can utilize coconut oil, okay, ranging from weight loss down to antibacterial properties, things like that. So we'll go through the why, we'll go through the how, and just the proper utilization of it, because coconut oil is pretty darn versatile. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that, yes, it's definitely rich in MCTs, which have powerful effects as far as thermogenic properties go, as far as weight loss properties go, but it really goes a little bit deeper than that. So we'll have some fun with this. Now, first off, please do hit the red subscribe and then hit that little bell icon as well. And then after this video, I want you to check out Thrive Market. They've got everything that you need in terms of pantry essentials delivered right to your doorstep. So go ahead and check them out. There's a link down below. It's a lot of times less expensive than going to the grocery store. Plus, you don't have to go to the store. It just gets delivered to your doorstep. So you definitely want to be thriving and check out Thrive Market. There's a link special for viewers down below. All right, number 1, first reason to use coconut oil and the methodology behind it is flat out for weight loss, whether you're doing the ketogenic diet or not. And there's some good science to back this up. It's pretty darn interesting. Okay, the big thing is, yes, it's calorically dense. You don't want to be eating a bunch of it, but it activates some specific things in the body. In particular, it activates something called PPAR alpha. So in other words, it turns on fat utilization genes a little bit more, helps your body utilize fat as a fuel source just by sort of a genetic effect of what happens when you consume coconut oil. So that alone is awesome, but let's dive a little bit deeper. You see, lauric acid makes up about 48% of coconut oil. Lauric acid breaks down and digests much faster than other saturated fats do. So it gets into your system and out of your system a little bit faster. But that's not the cool part. The rest of the fats are made up of a myriad of different kinds of saturated fats, but also MCTs. Now, medium chain triglycerides absorb very fast. They absorb so fast, in fact, that they actually trigger an adrenaline response. And there are studies that demonstrate that subjects that consume MCT oil have enough of an epinephrine response to stimulate a small amount of thermogenesis. What that means is it shocks your body so much that you get a little bit of a body temperature increase. That alone is very good when it comes down to burning fat. However, let's talk about a study that makes things really interesting and puts matters into perspective. So this study was published in the journal Lipids. Took a look at 40 females that needed to lose some weight. Okay, they had abdominal obesity or abdominal fat. Okay, they gave them either 10 milliliters per day of soybean oil or 10 milliliters per day of coconut oil. At the end of the study, both groups lost the same amount of weight, 2.2 pounds, but the coconut oil group lost over a half an inch of their abdominal fat. Over a half-inch circumference loss, even though the weight loss was the same. So who said that calories are all created equal, right? The coconut oil yielded a better result. The next time that you want to be using coconut oil is going to be to get into and sustain ketosis faster. Now, don't be fooled. Do not chase ketones, chase results. I don't want you to try to load up on a bunch of coconut oil just to drive your ketone levels up if you're already having good success, okay? Coconut oil has calories. You don't need to just add it just for the sake of it. But if your goal is to bring ketone levels up to get heightened cognitive function or heightened effects as far as like histone deacetylase inhibition or anything like that that comes along with higher ketone levels, then yes, coconut oil is a superfood for that because it's one of the highest MCT content of any food that you're going to find. Now, there was a study that was published in the journal Current Developments in Nutrition. Okay, it took a look at C8 pure MCT oil, took a look at C10 pure MCT oil, C6 pure MCT oil, as well as coconut oil combined with MCT oil. Now, no surprise, pure C8 MCT oil elicited the biggest ketogenic response. It spiked ketones the most. But surprisingly, the coconut oil ranked very, very well too. Why? Because it has MCT oil in it. So the coconut oil ranked pretty high on the list, but what was interesting is the coconut oil ranked really high for producing pure beta-hydroxybutyrate. Now, if you're a ketone nerd, you know what that means. That's the ketone that you really want. If you ever take an exogenous ketone supplement or anything like that, you are trying to get beta-hydroxybutyrate. Whereas pure C8 straight up MCT oil actually increased more acetoacetate, which is not bad. But the point in all of this, let me just say, is that you want the well-rounded beta-hydroxybutyrate. Not to say coconut oil is better than MCT, but the coconut oil definitely is a little bit more well-rounded. So if you want those ketones up, coconut oil is going to be, well, kind of a way to go. Now this next one comes from a recent paper that was published in the journal Nutrients that discusses how adding coconut oil with lunch or dinner can improve your satiety more so than it would with breakfast, implying that if you add coconut oil along with your dinner, you might be able to reduce the incidence of late night overeating. That alone is pretty powerful. What they found is that when they compared coconut oil going with lunch and dinner, specifically dinner, more so than breakfast, is that it yielded more satiety, less ghrelin, the hunger hormone, and more beta-hydroxybutyrate. So somehow coconut oil created more ketones in the bloodstream at night with dinner than it did with breakfast. Kind of fascinating, and quite honestly, the mechanism of action we don't really know, but if you produce more ketones, they are largely appetite suppressing. And having a surplus of ketones, or not necessarily a surplus, but extra ketones kind of coming in the evening time is never a bad thing, so that you don't have the urge to just munch on food while you're sitting on the couch watching a nighttime TV show. So that's just kind of a fun fact. Now the next one is going to be to take coconut oil when you're sick. It's not magic, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to tell you it's going to heal everything, but there's a lot of evidence that shows the antifungal, antimicrobial, and antibacterial properties of lauric acid, again, the primary constituent of coconut oil, pretty darn powerful. Now, I do not feel like pathogenic compounds or pathogenic bacteria or anything like that are going to really become resistant to coconut oil for 3 really solid reasons. Hear me out on this. Coconut oil and the lauric acid that's in it destructs the lipid layer of some viruses, but it also breaks down gram-positive bacteria that is bad. So that's one direction that it does it. Next, it interferes with microbial signaling for like signal transduction and things like that. So what that means is it slows down the communication of bacteria communicating with one another. That alone is very good as well. So that's 2 things. And the third thing is that it stabilizes the human membranes that interact with that. So all this said, what that means is that you have sort of a 3-point agenda to fight off pathogenic bacteria and some viral infections, right? So basically, the antibacterial components of coconut oil are very well rounded, so we're not going to develop a resistance to it like we might with some antibiotics, for instance. The next one kind of plays in line along with the antibacterial as well, and that's to use it in place of mouthwash. You've probably heard of oil pulling before, but it's quite effective. It just takes a little bit more time. So this study was published in the Journal of Contemporary Dental Practice. They compared using chlorhexidine mouthwash for 1 minute, oil pulling with coconut oil for 10 minutes, or swishing distilled water around for 1 minute. Surprise, the water won. No, I'm kidding. Okay, the oil pulling and the chlorhexidine ended up getting on point with each other. Now the downside with oil pulling is yes, you have to do it for a while. But chlorhexidine comes with its own set of negative benefits, right? That's an antibacterial in a strong way. You swallow a little bit of that, you're hurting your gut bacteria. There's a lot of evidence that shows that mouthwash is not necessarily the best thing. Oil pulling is kind of weird and kind of witch doctory, but there's some evidence that shows that it's quite legit. You see, what happens is the viscosity of the oil from the coconut oil actually inhibits the adhesion of the bacteria onto your actual mouth. So what that means is that because the oil is there, the bacteria gets pulled out and repelled. It doesn't stick to it. But then, of course, we factor in the antibacterial, kind of antifungal, and all of that component of the lauric acid, kind of have a double whammy, potentially killing off that bacteria and preventing other bacteria from sticking to the walls, sticking to the teeth. Now, that's pretty darn cool. We all know that it's going to be temporary. The second that you eat something, you're going to have bacteria back in your mouth again. But if you're using mouthwash all the time, you may want to try switching to just even a couple minutes of utilizing coconut oil. I would argue in my own anecdotal experience that 2 or 3 minutes probably does a good job as well. So anyhow, just to recap, for weight loss, to stimulate more ketone production, to prevent late night overeating when you're sick, and to use in place of mouthwash. We'll see you tomorrow.